Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So for today's talk, I'm going to talk about on meditation. Nothing new, and yet one of the most mysterious, sometimes mystical and mysterious these same little details we keep forget again and again. So these things needed to be reminded again and again. So I thought maybe I'll discuss the topic of meditation, just to give a little bigger picture, and along the way I will cover like the details as well. On meditation. So first of all, why do we meditate? The question of why we meditate. If you find the answer to that question of why we are meditating, then what is the meditation and how you meditate defines by the answer of why you meditate. Basically, the reason for meditation defines how you meditate and what is your meditation is. So, usually when we hear the term meditation, we listen to Dhamma talks, we discuss these things with friends, we think about meditation and like all the Yonaso Manasikara and all. We tend to think, we tend to perceive the subject of meditation as a technique. If I use this term paradigm, we tend to approach meditation as a technique. It's the paradigm of technique. And yet, if you look at the early Buddhist texts, particularly the suttas, and occasionally you see bits and pieces in Vinaya as well, you don't see Lord Buddha even use these terms like techniques or like considering this subject just meditation practice alone, like a stand-alone practice called meditation. But this approach of looking at meditation as a technique comes later on. You see, throughout the time, because Theravada tradition, it's a very strong and long-standing tradition. So understandably, the later texts come along and they contribute more to this understanding, and they sets the ground so that later people start to consider this thing called meditation as a in terms of like techniques. But if you look at the suttas, what you see, Lord Buddha says, develop a path. You develop your path, you develop your mind. The Eightfold Path is the technique, if you like. If you want to think in terms of a technique, Noble Eightfold Path is the technique. There's no other techniques mentioned in the suttas per se. So with the Noble Eightfold Path, along with that you hear, you read this, you see there is this thing called gradual training. There are many suttas, Lord Buddha uses this term, gradual training, and Anupubbi Patipada. So, whole project of Nibbana, freeing from suffering, is sort of explained from the beginning to the end, how one progresses the path. So certainly, it's you don't see one particular practice sort of taken out of it and given to the monks, or like overemphasized, and was told that okay, you do this alone will work. You don't see that. Always it's the path, the Eightfold Path. But later on you start to see these particular practices sort of getting more popular, and they are more kind of emphasized, even overemphasized. And this original idea of the symbiosis of all the other sort of factors of the Eightfold Path somehow lost, and these few things sort of emphasized, and they are out there alone. Sometimes you practice these things, somehow you don't get the support of the rest of these path factors, or rest of this more kind of holistic idea of the Noble Eightfold Path. To give you a simile, it's like a tree. Usually tree grows among other trees. Even scientists would say how all the root networks actually even communicates. They connect with other trees and they communicates. These are not like some sort of a new agey sort of some stuff, but these things, that's how the tree works. Sometimes they kind of connect each other. So there's sort of a help. It's a network. One of the nodes in a vast network of trees. One tree is always sort of supported by all the ecosystem kind of a thing. But we pay attention to this particular tree and we want to sort of pot it or plant it somewhere else because it's beautiful, it's a very special tree, so you pluck it out and plant somewhere else. Just a tree alone, it will grow, but you don't expect from that tree to sort of grow in the same way if it would stay in the forest. It's a different thing. So you see sometimes these certain trees sort of plucked out from this forest of Buddhism and emphasized as, okay, this is meditation, you do these techniques and you will get these results, and this is Nibbana, or this is the liberation. And yet people still have doubts after all these years of, since this paradigm of techniques sort of came into the public awareness. People have been meditating, and yet the results somehow not that promising, to be honest, the truth to be told, because of this So you see these things, especially as monks, we have dedicated ourselves 24/7 for these things. It's not like a part-time job for us. So as monks, we dedicate ourselves to a certain technique sometimes, and after many years, to find out that somehow it doesn't sort of get you to the final destination. It promises sometimes. I'm not trying to be controversial here, but at some point, these things also need to be discussed too. So then you wonder actually, what's missing? Why it doesn't yield um, compared to what these techniques claim usually. So, and you look at the suttas, and then you start to see the differences. There are a great deal of differences like that. So, I just wanted to tell that there's these techniques versus the Noble Eightfold Path. I think that deviation of the Eightfold Path and overemphasizing in a certain technique could be the problem. So back to basics, back to the original Buddhism, if you like, would be like a nice way to sort of to be just to be safe, to be on safe side. So you sort of follow strictly what the Lord Buddha says and see how it goes. And you see certain teachers actually emphasize these things, and in my personal experience, the results are rather promising. And again, what you can surmise that this could be because these are like closer to suttas. If it is not according to the suttas, at least that kind of goes along with the principles of the suttas. So the paradigm of technique versus the Noble Eightfold Path, that is also something to be aware of. So it's always good to follow the original instruction. That's why there are many verses. Many times Lord Buddha emphasized there's no other path than the Noble Eightfold Path. So he emphasizes it. Even in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, there's a time there won't be any samanas and Brahmins attain arahantship outside Eightfold Path, Lord Buddha says. He's not being sort of a dogmatic and being divisive or something like that, right? But he's telling the truth. Look, if you want to realize what I realized, this is it. This is the path. This is the shortest one. If I could give you a more short one, I would already. So don't look for shorter paths than this. That's what Lord Buddha would say. That's what you hear, but that's what you gather when you look at the sutta. So he is sort of assertive. He says, "You come to me. I don't come to you." Because otherwise, how could you ever train yourself? That's what I'm saying here. So it's a challenge. Without a challenge, we would never learn. So instead of bending these things to our will, how about we bend our will to the what Buddha's will? That's called training. So that is also to be considered. So hence you see this gradual sort of a path. Sometimes there are these three aspects like dana, sila, and the bhavana. You start with the dana. You see, even Lord Buddha gives a Dhamma talk. He starts with the dana kata, sila kata, sagga kata. Dana, sila, and Deva realms. How do you purify yourself so you end up in a Deva realm? That's how you start. Where you are right now, how you can improve yourself, your very sort of situation right now, and then move on to a more kind of a higher sort of situation. Not just, okay, this is not good enough, just jump onto a like 1,000 meters. That's where you should be. Wherever you are, that's not good enough. That's not how Lord Buddha says. So you start with that. The dana, sila, bhavana are very important. After all these years, I've come to maybe not a conclusion, but at least in my mind, I can see how people, how the dana, how the sila, basically prepares the ground, fertiles the ground. So these seeds of wisdom, the seeds of meditation, all this other, higher training can take foot on it. So it starts with the dana. It doesn't have to be always material dana. It can be non-material. You see, certain teachers in Thailand, they emphasize a teacher like Lompolian, but for an instance, he talks a lot about sacrifice, siasala. You hear this Thai term siasala a lot. You wonder actually first what he's kind of talking about. So, and then you realize, okay, he's sort of emphasizing about sacrificing yourself to the cause, to the practice, to someone else's sort of benefit. So you give up. That's also a dana, right? You sort of, for a moment, you stop thinking about what you want. For a moment, you do something, something for somebody else, what someone else wants. So it's a sacrifice. It's a giving. That's also a dana. So there are many kinds of dana like that. You basically you set aside what you want for a moment, and you do what the teachers ask you to do, or you kind of attend to someone in need, things like that. The sila also very important. There are so many suttas talk about sila. These techniques also sometimes doesn't cover that ground properly, in my opinion. In a Buddhist country, a situation in a Buddhist country, you expect, there are so much condition that, sila must be there. Although, we are not perfect in sila, at least any average Buddhist would know, the 5 precepts is essential, although I'm not sort of up to it yet. They know at least the sila is important, or the fundamental. So when they meditate, at least they know, there must be some sila at the background. But the technique itself doesn't sometimes emphasize these things, because it's sort of out of that ecosystem. It's just a technique, just this. But if you see the same thing happening, this planting, the action of replanting, this relocating this tree happening in a non-Buddhist country, the results are rather clear. They meditate, but no idea of sila sometimes. They might know, but not that sort of inclination for sila. Or any dana sometimes. It's a kind of classic observation actually. It's been happening for ages now. I'm not saying that they are incapable of, but you see in general, you can't you can't say otherwise. At the end of the day, people interested in these things, the meditation and all, but how about the whole lot, the whole package? Maybe not. They don't have time for that sometimes. So you see, the things deviate from the original ideas in such a situation, because the idea or the conditioning of having a sila is not present, so the tree will grow without the sila. If I follow the simile, then it'll bear different fruits. So that is also kind of like a little eye opener. You should be sort of be aware of. Look, these things. We have to sort of grow them as a sort of a group of trees, not just one tree. So sila is very important. And then the bhavana, the dana sila bhavana, you develop your mind. Sometimes you sit and meditate. You you do walking meditation. Sometimes you just attend into your daily things, and still you try to sort of watch over your mind. That's also part of the bhavana, because the bhavana, when we hear the bhavana, the word bhavana, we always sort of the mental image is that someone sitting cross-legged and eyes closed meditating. But the word bhavana is, as you know, it's to develop. Bhaveti, it's to develop. The developing of the mind can be done, not just sitting or the walking postures, but in day-to-day situations also we're supposed to do it. So it's a whole project of looking after your mind, to purify your mind, not just developing one particular set of exercises, mental exercises, or like a training. Not just one thing. The whole thing is connected to each other, with each other. So then you see like three sections emerges in Noble Eightfold Path as well. Sila, Samadhi and Panya. Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanta, Samma Ajiva, that is Sila. And Samma Vayama, Samma Sati, Samma Samadhi, that is Samadhi group of Eightfold Path. And Samma Ditti, Samma Sankappa, that is the Panya. So these things also you see, starting with the Sila, the calm in the mind, and then the Panya. You see like a gradual sort of progression here. All the things gathered together and presented as a path. Not just the Samma Sati. Develop Sati, be mindful. Not just that, but the whole lot is there. So, in Mahacattarika Sutta, there is a very important advice for us. Now, the views are very important. The Eightfold Path starts with the views, right? The right view. If the views are correct, then the sankappas, the thoughts or the intentions will be correct. The term is that the ditti is samma, then the sankappa also will be samma. The samadit, samma sankappa, samma vacha. This vacha also will be samma afterwards. So, according to the Mahacattarika Sutta, if the dittis are samma, the rest of the the parts in the Eightfold Path will be samma, will be accurate, the correct. If the dittis are wrong, if you're lacking in dittis, that will reflect over the rest of the 7 path factors. So, all this meditation, all this practice, the views are very important, therefore. So let's try to answer this question of why we meditate then, because the why is very important. Why do we meditate? The first thing need to be said is that, what Ajahn Chah would say. Ajahn Brahm repeats this again and again. Ajahn Chah would say that we meditate to let go things, not to accumulate things, not to achieve things. So that's a very simple advice by Ajahn Chah, but makes a world of difference. We would like, we like to be a Sotapanna at least. If we could be a Sotapanna, and that's a very neat thing. But instead of focusing on, I want to be a Sotapanna, how about we focus on how I can get rid of, or get rid of also like a strong word sometimes, but it might give you like a wrong impression sometimes. But how about I understand what the Silabhata Paramasa, Sakkaya Ditthi and Vicikicca. Once you understand, once you break through your self-view, the Sakkaya Ditthi, and these attachments to the sila and practice sometimes, the certain practices, Silabhata Paramasa, and Vicikicca, the doubt. Absence of those is called Sotapanna. So it's always you emptying yourself with all this unwanted, sometimes destructive, very unhelpful, leading to suffering, sort of this garbage. You emptying this can of garbage bit by bit. You have emptied to a certain extent, you are called a Sotapanna. Not that another like a badge, another sort of a stripe coming to your shoulder or to your chest, a medal that you are a Sotapanna. We are sort of a special force, sort of you are like a Sotapanna kind of thing, yeah? Something like that. It is that, I've been so stupid, somehow I managed to get rid of certain stupidity, so I'm not that stupid anymore. That's the best way of putting it. If you think in terms of what Ajahn Chah said, not to accumulate things, but to give up things, emptying things. It's a very important idea, a teaching actually. And certainly it goes along with the Four Noble Truths, right? The wanting leads to suffering. Even in the meditation, if you start to want stuff, you will experience suffering, because it's a textbook error. Not wanting or content with what you have right now in the meditation or in a daily life, that will cease the dukkha bit by bit, which will kind of a little bit of you will start to feel a little, bits and pieces of liberation here and there. You're not bothered by things anymore, maybe not as much as you used to be bothered by these things. So bit by bit you go towards the dukkha nirodha, the lessening of wanting, lessening of accumulating and all this hoarding, wanting instinct you have. You're going against the grain. So theoretically, if you follow the Four Noble Truths, that's what it means. So the meditation practice also should reflect that. Otherwise, you meditate, but somehow that meditation does not connect to your other aspect of your life. So these things has to sort of connect. Otherwise, that to say the same they repeat that the tree simile, the meditation plant somehow grows separately from the rest of your forest of dense jungle of thoughts and emotions and all these things. So that plant does not contribute to the rest of the ecosystem. So it's a separate thing. So no wonder sometimes people meditate are still kind of confused after all these years. You see, unfortunately sometimes. So this must be the reason. If you if you pay attention, you should think about these things. Not following the same thing again and again and again, get into the same pitfall, one after the other. So, the why, we are talking about the why. Why we meditate? Yes. So, as Ajahn says, to get, to lessening the wanting, not to accumulate things, but to let go. And again, why we should meditate? Because the thoughts, emotions, all these things occurs in the mind, coming out of nowhere sometimes triggered by something happening in the outside world, and they are they invade our mind. Fears of someone, some harm, or fear of sickness, fear of future, angry, upset about things, the lust, all these messy things sometimes people get into. All these things, all this because the people get into trouble. Why? Because of all these thoughts occur in their mind, and no one to guide the mind, because just kind of taken by the nose, like a cow or something. You are taken by, you are led by your nose. These defilements basically take you here and there. So usually we follow the defilements. That's what happens. So we meditate just to claim back that control. Being on that higher ground. So you have a certain say, a certain control, or free yourself from all these downward spirals you sometimes experience. You can do something about it. So that's a very good reason for meditation. And often Thai forest tradition teachers would say, you are very fond of, or very keen rather, of taking medicines for your bodily sickness. How about taking medicine for mental illnesses, they say. So no one cares about their mind. It's just a body. These days it has gone crazy. Health-wise and all these things, and beautifying and things like that. Just an obsession over body. How about the mind? How about the stress accumulates because of the overworking mind? Not just lay people these days, the monks are also victims for that. Because there's so many things happening in the same time. So much expected. So we end up overworking. How about all these overworking of your mind? How you're going to deal with these things without meditation? So that's also why we meditate, because the meditation actually helps to deal with these things very rather skillful way, because the situation wouldn't change as quick as you want. Eventually you can change. It's not totally out of control. If you really want to change your situation, you can change the situation, but it takes a while. But you need to have that other means to deal with these busyness and all these things. Otherwise, the mind will take the toll. The stress, the other sort of imbalances in the mind, things like that. And you need the clarity as well. So once you when you overwork, then the mind is tired, you lose clarity. That's a fact. After a tiring day, you are more tend to sort of get angry or sort of do sort of silly things sometimes because you're tired. You can't see that much. It happens all the time. So we need to have that clarity. If we have the clarity, we can go about and do our attend to our things more clearly. Do a good job. You can do a good job. You can attend to your family well. You can do your occupation as well in a more in a quality way. So the clarity matters. So we need that clarity. We meditate to gain that clarity as well because it's essential. Otherwise, we keep we live in this boring and sort of dull and the same sort of a thing. Get up in the morning, go to work and all these things. Just the rut. But if you can have that clarity, it'll be more enjoyable what you do. Even the same chores, same old things you do, it'll be enjoyable because of that clarity. You see more. Instead of taking right on this junction, you see, okay, if I go to the left, again, like I can take a different way this time and see how it leads. You can experiment with things. You have that curiosity once again, because this losing the curiosity is a big problem as you grow old, right? The same old thing, yeah. So what's the big deal, But then sort of we tend to sort of give up the good things as well because of that lack of curiosity. The changing of perception and keeping that curiosity going is, in my opinion, is very important. It'll definitely helpful. That must be the reason that in Zen they say like this. The Zen, there's a book called The Zen Mind, The Beginner's Mind. What they say basically. Even though as a experienced practitioner, you keep that. Remember that how you sort of started meditation. Keep that curiosity, keep that humbleness as a beginner. So you're open to whatever you are experiencing, rather than I know that already. I don't have to sort of go through all these things. But you never know, something out of ordinary appears in the same pile of experiences. But you sort of take everything is granted. Yeah, I know that already. That sort of that's a great hindrance for your practice. So the clarity, for that clarity we meditate, and most importantly, it lessens the suffering. It lessens that stress. It lessens that unsatisfactoriness, and brings up that joy. It lessens the dukkha. It raises the sukha, the happiness of mind, happiness of meditation. At least you get to lead a life with less drama, if I put it in that way, because so much drama. He said this, she said he did that, and all these sort of things going on in our lives. Despite all that, let the drama be outside, but inside, okay. I would say these days, just to sort of reword your mission and vision statements, like as if like some kind of an organization. I don't know whether it's a mission or vision, but at least, but to have like, okay, I would like to live a life without, without drama or less drama. That's my mission. Let's say it's a vision. I don't know. So it's a worthy goal. If we put this, if we put these things in a contemporary word, because to lead a life with less drama, it's difficult apparently. So how about that? Part of why we meditate, just listening my drama, all this sort of drama throws up at me by my mind. How about that? That's also a good why. Why should I meditate? So that's also a good reason. So so what is meditation then? Then why? Once we sort of are clear about why we meditate, then the answers are getting clear. What should be our meditation? Definitely the calming of your mind. The calming is the key. The calmness starts to, it leads to more clarity, and that clarity leads to understanding. It's a kind of natural progress of the meditation. So calming the mind is part. It's kind of, this is also one of the key components of the meditation. We are sort of trying to understand what is meditation now. We just covered the why. So then you gain that higher ground, that control over. Control also, again, like a strong word, but at least you oversee. You know how to sort of put antidote over your emotions and stuff. So meditation is part of meditation is that you apply an antidote. You do something for your this unwanted or rather unhelpful emotions. So staying in the present moment, also very important part of it. It's also a key component. We always think the vitakka vichara is happening all the time. When we speak to someone, you see sometimes they listen to you, but it's like on and off. They come to the present moment and listen to you and go back to their heads and come back and go back. It's just a kind of a back and forth sort of a zooming in, zooming out, like kind of a thing. You see sometimes, particularly, it's sometimes apparent, it's a little clear with certain people even. As monks, we notice this a lot. But can you be present and try to understand what this person try to say? What this person really needs. Who is this person anyway? Sometimes, I hear, I remember like a lay teacher once, a Westerner actually, told, after all these years of living as spouses, husband and wife, sometimes people get to know actually for the first time after like 30, 40, 50 years, okay, now I realize, he did, you sort of you're suddenly revealed, or like you understand, you see through your partner. You've been living this person in a close quarters for a long time, but still didn't understand the person. So it takes like ages sometimes. Finally you sort of understand what they really wanted actually. How they thought of me, or things like that. So we can physically hear People can be in a relationship or in as a group. When we work as a group, physically they are there, but mentally they are in their heads, thinking what they think. Who is this person is processed inside, instead of paying attention and try to understand what's in front of you. So, present moment is very important in that regard. Then relaxation, also part of the meditation. Relaxation, the calming the mind, and the silence also. The mind has this sort of a ongoing chatter always. The Ajahn Brahm particularly emphasized on silence. He used to teach meditation, stage by stage fashion, but later on he sort of thought maybe people get into so methodical and sometimes misunderstand what the meditation is. So these days he might not that methodical kind of when he teaches. When he sort of explains his meditation practice, but present moment awareness, then the silence he would usually recommend you. The silence is important to you. So if you value the silence, at first the silence in the outside, you find the silence place, or you tend to sort of speak less, kind of appreciate the silence. Why do we need to sort of talk all the time? Do we have to sort of point out everything? How about we leave people to sort of figure out, how to sort of move around and navigate, in a situation. You don't have to talk all the time. But in particular, the Thais, at least Thai monks, even lay people, they value silence apparently. And if you go to a monastery, you are not kind of being told always kind of what to do. There's no kind of a clear set of instructions so people tell you and always sort of telling you off like that. You are encouraged to observe. Follow what others do. Blend in. So the mindfulness is required. And the silence is encouraged. It is conducive for your samadhi practice as well. So the silence is very important. If you start to value these things, you will eventually incline towards that silence. That's a fact. With that, the clarity happens and the understanding starts to emerge. That's a part of the meditation. You start to see things with the clarity. You see more. You get to a certain, you have something at hand. You have the clarity. Suddenly things occur to you. It's not you are doing basically. But the mind knows actually how to engage and how to sort of execute that particular thing, because you have the sati, you have the clarity. Later you might say, "Oh, I did it," but it's a function of sati basically. It's a kind of a good, it's a good observation if you are looking out for anatta, the aspects of anatta. Are you really doing it, or you're just facilitating all these things, but the rest of the mind process is actually taking over and doing the job for you. So that's also part of it. And the last point I wanted to say about what is meditation, under what is meditation, is that meditation consists of two aspects. What are those two? The samatha and the vipassana. So the both has to go together. I'm not sort of making these things. It's in the suttas all the time. You see, when Lord Buddha says samatha, it's always followed by vipassana. It's basically like a twin. It's a yugala pada, if you say in single. Samatha vipassana, it comes as like a compound. That's a technical term. So both supports each other. Like if I say, you meditate, you gain a little bit of at least a bit of uh, calmness, then you start to see, or at least you start to notice that there are these thoughts bothering you. You want to meditate, but these thoughts are like overwhelming. Well, because the fact that you sat down and you're trying to be still, that made you see that there are this constant stream of thoughts. So there is, even at the beginning of these seemingly hopeless meditations, there is a little bit of a calmness there. So you see more this, because if you are like busy and work, if you're working, you don't notice these things, but you are sort of you stop, and then you start to see the noise, in the background in your mind. So there is a little bit of calmness, then you start to see these things. You try to sort of carry on with your anapanasati or any other meditation object. If you can't sort of carry on because these things are constantly being an obstacle, then you set aside that thing and then you pay attention to this. Why these things are coming? What's the reason? Can't I let these things go? So you start to see through it and understand it. That's the vipassana side of it. And you can, of course, do a little bit of yonaso manasikara, and that little obstacle will go away. And then, for a moment, mind start to bother about another thing. So that's, again, you're back into your calmness. You're calmer than before. So with that calmness, you carry on, and here comes another obstacle, something, or not in the same sitting, but some other sitting. With that calmness, you see more of what is that obstacle is. Then, because of that calmness, you see more. That means you can do more vipassana. Because of that vipassana, the obstacle was removed. Then you get more calm. Do you see what I mean? The samatha and the vipassana goes hand in hand, supporting each other. So Ajahn Chah would say that the samatha and vipassana are inseparable. He gives the simile of hand, a palm actually. So when you look at the palm, the samatha, the vipassana is right behind. It's here. You don't see the outside of the palm. If you sort of look at vipassana, you don't see the samatha right at the moment, but it's behind. So it's like that. That's how the teachers would explain along with the suttas. So samatha vipassana is very important aspect of it. Then how to meditate is the last sort of a topic. I'm already sort of running out of time, but how to meditate part is more sort of I think you are more very well informed in general. You've been meditating, so let me sort of cover that bit also. So how you meditate? We covered why, we covered what, and how to meditate. So part of how is that you try to change the attention. Instead of following your thoughts, how about changing the attention to something else, something wholesome? That's what we are doing. Either you change the attention to this moment, or you're paying attention to some other particular object like breath. So changing attention is it's one of these strategies. Part of how we meditate. Being in the present moment also part of it. You sort of you try to train yourself. You try to be in the present moment. Sometimes staying in the plain present moment is difficult, but if you sort of practice it, it's it becomes easy. You can do it. And when you do the breath meditation, or if you are doing a walking meditation, that also can be done in the light of present moment. It's happening in the present moment. You have that perception of present moment. It's happening right now. The breath is happening now. You are not sort of switching back and forth, like analyzing the breath or anything like that. Just what's happening right now. So one breath at a time. It's just a one breath. You can, if you can watch a one breath. Ajahn Brahm used to give as an exercise. Can you observe a one breath? You can observe a one breath very easily, but can you sort of repeat that? So that's the trick. That's the difficult part. But it's always like one breath happening right now. So don't worry about like the breaths in the future. Just can you pay attention to what's happening right now? It's in the present moment. You're walking up and down. You're sort of paying attention to your legs. But can you pay attention? Let's say I'm only paying attention from here to there, just a one side walk, yeah? Just a one. And then you stop, you turn back, and again, I'll again be aware of from here to there, that's it. So it's not burdensome for your mind, it's just like a tiny goal. You think one thing at a time, this present moment. So this is how you meditate. So that's also part of it. And we try to pay attention to the experience rather than explaining these things. Something comes up in your mind and then the commentator starts to explain what's happening. We don't want that commentator. Why don't you sort of pay attention to what's happening? Because now you're meditating. It's a time for meditation, not for the Yoniso Manasikara yet. So if you are meditating, if you are looking at the breath, if you are in the present moment, you don't have to sort of follow the commentator in your mind. Don't pay attention to the commentator. Pay attention to this moment, though have this thing happening in the moment, breath or your walking meditation. That is important. And a hindrance or a problem comes regarding how we meditate. We forget what should be doing, and then because of that we wander off. Sometimes we lose interest. That's another reason we go off the track when we meditate. So when you forget, eventually you will know actually you forgot. What you should do immediately, you repeat the same instruction to you. That is basically setting up mindfulness once again. No, I should be meditating right now. This is my meditation time. You remind it yourself again. This is my meditation time. I'll think about the other things later. This is my meditation time. So you remind yourself, this is what I should be doing. If you lose interest, then it's because of lack of contentment. Then maybe you can say, this is good enough. I have tons of stuff to do afterwards, but for this 20-30 minutes, staying with the breath, I don't mind. This is good enough. This is good enough. So put some contentment into it, so you can sort of sustain your attention to your object. So that's a part of the how. So sati and the contentment are like very important tools. And sati in general, regarding the how we meditate. Sati has two aspects: the paying attention to what's happening, and you know exactly what you should be doing with that experience. Because you've been paying attention, you've been experiencing something, and what you're going to do with that experience. So both are very important when you meditate. So those two aspects of the sati is very important. One, just attention without what you are doing, without the knowledge of what you should be doing. It's a partial sati. It's not quite useful sometimes. Like this security guard simile of Ajahn Brahm, I'm sure you already heard about this thing a lot. So these are the aspects about the how should we be doing the meditation. And another point, the aspect I would like to point out, that you are trying to be passive in this situation. Now you are meditating. You are not going to control that much. There are times actually you should be doing something. You should actively change your perception. Some anger comes. It's good to sort of change your perception. Okay, you are annoyed by some aspect of something happened, some person did something, but if you try to change your perception actively to something else, look, yeah, he has done a stupid thing, but he has done, he has good side to him as well. Think something like that. You change the perception, which will lessen your anger. So there are so many emotions, doesn't helpful. So we should change our perceptions to deal with these things. Asubha, metta, marnanusati, buddhanusati are it's like four good examples of these perceptions. We should actively change the situation, so we come back to the wholesome states. But in meditation, it's rather like, most of the things are like not that happening, because you are sort of sitting down, eyes closed. It's just the mind sort of throwing up these things. So most of the time to time, you might need to change the perception, but you try to observe what's happening passively. You are not controlling the experience. So not controlling, being an observer, being a person in the backseat is important. That's also part of how we meditate. So we are not forcing things. We try to sort of facilitate, allow things to grow, like we grow trees. We can't sort of force trees to grow, right? You sort of bring all the necessary conditions and protect the tree, and the tree will grow by itself. So we need patience for that. So longer you can stay with these objects, these things will start to vanish, and the object also gets changed, and the breath turns into some other subtle sort of perception, and eventually you are getting to samadhi and rest happens. So I don't want to sort of go into that much of a detail in the deep meditation, but so this is a part of how we meditate in general. So just to recap, just to summarize what I've said, why we meditate, important. It will define how we meditate and what is our meditation is, and the things are taken as a whole. It's a gradual training. It's a path. It's not just one technique. So this is something to be aware of. And views matter. Whatever the views you have, it will define rest of the path. How you tread the path. If you have right view, if you have good kalyana mittas, you will be conditioned by those good kalyana mittas. So you will understand what the right view is bit by bit. that will purify your path, the rest of the path as well. You can't sort of course, achieve 100% purity in the view and then move on to the rest of the paths. It's a cycle. You know, whatever the purity you have right now in the views, you go on to the next path factors and you practice. And with that knowledge, you kind of come back and revise. So you kind of keep, sort of purify all these path factors, particularly the views. So the views sort of matter. So I would like to stop here. There'll be a little bit of a Q&A as well. Because of some other commitments, I'm afraid I have to leave early. Yes, so I would like to stop here. So I would like to encourage you. I hope this will help for you to rethink, consider what you've been already practicing. And I wish you a good practice and a great time with your life. And a Happy New Year as well. So I'll stop here. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.